Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Game Devs of Color Expo 2020, the only expo featuring me, the Purple Sharpie, not copywritten in any way, shape, or form. Welcome to the stream. I'm here with a fantastic creative director, Jongwoo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you, Sharpie.
I'm so excited to be speaking with you, and I'm even more excited about the game that we have with you, and that is Lucifer Within Us. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. Lucifer Within Us is a mystery-solving game about digital exorcism. The game takes place in a futuristic theocracy in which everyone has cybernetic implants, but as a result become vulnerable to cyber-demonic possession. So you play as Sister Ada, who is an exorcist that is investigating murders to uncover the true culprits behind them and cast out the demons behind the culprits.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing, mysterious game right up my alley. I believe we also have a trailer for it. Why don't we go ahead and take a look, and then we can talk a little bit more about some of these mechanics. Wow. Oh my absolute goodness. Okay, wait. I'm hearing from my producer that trailer was lit. Okay, that's my official producer telling me this. I'm sorry. I don't know how that's relevant in any way, shape, or form. But wow, that is so cool. I loved it. All right. I saw some amazing mechanics inside of just that trailer, and I want to delve into them. I want to talk about them. Let's get straight into it. Look, let me know how much of the game can we expect using this crazy contradiction testimony mechanic. That's so cool. How does it work?
The way it works is when you talk to any suspect in a case, what they're claiming happened is reconstructed in real time in 3D, fully animated, and completely under your control. So you can navigate to any moment in the timeline according to what they're claiming happened. And of course, suspects will not tell you exactly what happened, right? They have every reason to lie to you. And so as the exorcist, you have to investigate the crime scene, find physical evidence, as well as the testimonies of other suspects to uncover the lies behind what the suspects are saying, to force them to speak the truth and figure out what truly happened during the events of the crime.
So I'd like to delve a little bit more into the contradiction mechanic as we see it inside of some of these examples.
Sure.
We know that certain people are going to be lying to us, but how can we force that contradiction? How does that mechanic specifically work?
Specifically, if you scrutinize the testimony lines, the statements that the characters are saying, and scrutinize the physical evidence and the descriptions for them, astute players will notice certain discrepancies that don't make sense. So initially, if you're not sure about whether something is a full contradiction, you're free to ask about anything in the game. So, you know, the door controls that you discovered, you can just ask a suspect about them if something feels fishy about it. And if they seem uncommittal about the contradiction that you notice, then you activate contradiction mode and present it to them, and they're forced to admit the truth about at least that segment of their testimony. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing that they're lying about or they're not mentioning about what happened, though.
That's actually very amazing. Now, I also know that the player-directed choices, specifically inside the game, the ability to question anything and everything, does pay off by allowing a little bit more control to the player. Was that on purpose from the developer?
For sure. That was absolutely on purpose on our part. So I'm a huge fan of mystery-solving games, and as much as I love them, one of my biggest frustrations is that they usually don't allow me to really be the investigator. I often feel like I'm dragged along for a ride, and it might be a very awesome ride, but at the end of the day, I feel like I often felt like when I was playing Phoenix Wright, LA Noir, Danganronpa, and so forth, that until the story was ready to move forward with the investigation, I wasn't actually able to point out the problems that I saw and what the characters were saying. And so in Lucifer Within Us, like as soon as you arrive at the crime scene, everything is open to you. The whole physical space is open to you, and everything the suspects want to say, at least initially, is open to you. And to uncover more, the only thing that is locked is what the characters are lying about. And so in that way, there's no like 11th hour, like critical information that comes out of nowhere. It's really up to you to figure out what happened and cast out the demon within the murderer.
Gotcha. I completely understand. I'd like to delve a little bit more into the artistic design side of things, and I'd like to get more of your understanding about the universe and how that plays off in both the visuals as well as just the character design, if that's okay.
For sure.
So what I first want to touch is the actual name of the game. Lucifer Within Us has a whole huge Christian motif, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about how that's personified inside of the game, if you could.
Absolutely. And so I've mentioned multiple times that demons are within the true murderer, and so like part of this comes from what I noticed in like a sci-fi or futuristic fiction, like these days, tending to be a very materialist or corporate types of future, and of course those are like realistic dystopias that we may encounter. But like I have a history background, so I've studied history in university, and what struck me is like as recently as like perhaps a Renaissance, it wasn't like the separation between like the material and spiritual wasn't so severe. Like Sir Isaac Newton spent most of his time pursuing alchemy and other rather like a supernatural, like what we might today consider supernatural pursuits. And so like he would have had no trouble like believing in like angels and so forth, as well as still pursuing physics. And so like a huge inspiration for the game was, what if like there was this alternate future in which that separation never happened? And what if in this society the digital is the spiritual? And to the extent that they're cyber demons, sure, you could see them as viruses because everyone has cybernetic implants. But as far as they're concerned, they are really demons because they affect you as much as what the demons in Christian theology might affect you.
No, I completely understand. That's really interesting. So you did have a history in general, specifically with the theological side of this. I guess my additional question, just to kind of expand on it a little bit more, is I'm seeing a lot of the gritty colors and everything like that, really making the game seem that much darker. You know what I mean? Adding another layer of seriousness and to the conversation from the player's point of view. Was that also intentional?
To some degree, yeah. I mean, part of that came from an expectation about the mystery genre, right? Just by the nature of like trying to obscure things from the player, trying to establish a certain mood about nefarious happenings and so forth. When we did an initial test with like a much lighter color scheme or like a lighter time of day and so forth, the mood that we wanted to like encapsulate was not quite there. I'm not sure that like a gritty per se is exactly what we're going for, but definitely gothic. Definitely it's like some slightly horror twinge, like very much inspired by a church and like in the middle of the night and so forth. That sort of aesthetic is definitely what we were trying to shoot for.
Now, I'd like to go ahead and move the conversation a little bit more to just the general understanding that I have, because I believe that this is actually your development team's very first game. Is that correct?
Not at all.
No, it's not. Oh my gosh, I'm so literal embarrassed. I apologize.
It's okay.
About that.
I mean, Kitfox has been around for about 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
So Boyfriend Dungeon is the other project that we're currently developing at the same time. So this would be like our fourth or fifth project, depending on what you count.
Oh, wow. So I'd like to understand specifically in terms of your development schedule, how you felt. I understand that this game is a love child to some of your history with mystery games and investigative games, similar to the Phoenix Wright genre. How did you feel having an opportunity to develop something that you felt so closely to?
Yeah, I mean, I was super excited to have this opportunity to pursue this project.
Hmm.
It was definitely like a difficult process for a couple of reasons. Like for one, the design issues, tied to, giving player directed experience
Mhm.
while I'm still having a satisfying a mystery narrative experience, right? Finding that balance was very difficult. And, but at the same time, just having the opportunity to explore the space and just be part of like what I would consider the indie wave of mystery games. Like, you might recall Return of the Obra Dinn,
Mm.
and Telling Lies, and so
Telling
forth.
Lies is a good one. Telling
Yeah,
Lies is a
right.
very good one. Yes.
For sure. So like in all like a common thread among these games is that like they are definitely rebelling against the like a very strict linear structure of like existing mystery games, and really empowering the player to be the investigator.
Mm.
And this is our own spin on that this fundamental design question,
Mm.
and we're super excited for players to check it out and really enjoy it for themselves.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about fundamental design specifically inside of independently made games. I understand
Okay,
that Kitfox does both develop and publish games. So I know
that's right.
that there have been a multitude of other developers that you've seen probably inside of the indie scene as
Yep.
far as publishing, self publishing, or either coming to you specifically to publish their games.
Right.
How do you feel that this game specifically has challenged notions that you had regarding how best to publish an indie game, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Like part of our challenge for this game was that, so we started development about 3.5 years ago at this
Mhm.
point, and at the time that was before any of the games that I mentioned had come out, and so like part of the challenge was okay. So we see that there is this opportunity in this design space.
Mhm.
It wasn't clear that like how big that market is,
Mm.
whether given the complexity of what we're trying to build, that there would be a payoff in that front.
Mm.
So just from a purely business standpoint.
Mhm.
So what enabled us to pursue this project in part was that we're based out of Montreal, and so we were able to get funding from the Canadian government called the Canadian Media Fund.
Oh,
And
wow.
so yeah, so that's actually in fact without that funding, perhaps the project would have never been made, at least not in the same way that we did, right? This project.
I'm going to interrupt you for a moment just to say, America, United States of America, get your stuff together. There are very talented artists out here that are making content, and these other countries recognize that. All right. I'm going to just say it. I'm going to let you go back. Thank you so much.
For sure, yeah, and so it is definitely like an advantage that we have, and it allowed us to pursue the design in such a way without having like a more rigorous validation of how big a possible player base is in that front, and just to pursue design for its own sake because we thought it was interesting. And as far as just how does that affect publishing? It enabled us to not so as Kitfox as like a studio, we do publish and develop,
Mhm.
but then we didn't have to find external funding source for Lucifer Within Us because we
Mm.
were able to rely on this alternate source instead. And so
Fantastic.
yeah, so as a result we were able to maintain the creative vision as much as possible.
That's amazing. That's very, very important, specifically when you're talking about games that are love letters to previous, games that you may have played that you want to change something about. Being able to have that idea that you don't have to conform due to what may be reciprocated later monetarily through sales is huge. I'm just so
Absolutely.
happy that you had that monetary stability coming from especially a government source or something like that so that you didn't have to worry. That's huge. Very, very happy to hear that. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and move the gears slightly more. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the artistic design choices inside of this game.
Okay.
Was there a specific I know we talked a little bit about what age, as far as religion and Christianity roots, we were looking back at, but was there a specific event that you felt inside, that you used inside of the game, without providing too many spoilers? Which, by the way, if you are concerned about spoilers, I'm just going to say right now, you should be on the Steam, because the demo is live as of literally right now, y'all. As of literally right now. We're not showing you no more game footage. Get to Steam, wishlist the game, play the demo. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Now, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back over to you, and I wanted to ask if there were any specific events inside of Christian history that you specifically called on to get inspirations, or any similarities inside of the game that you can remember.
Sure.
Or tell us about.
I guess, like, at a very superficial level, the Inquisition is like it was an institution that the game's exorcists are part of the Inquisition equivalent in the game's universe, and so in that way, like, it's a question about even in in the ideal situation in which a religion with good intentions and with the will, like the political will to do to serve the people, right? Like, in that situation, like what happens to your personal truth, right? Like, do people, like, just because they, like, on the surface they seem to follow what is being taught, like, do they really believe? Do they, like, and like to the extent that the formal authorities expose that, what does that look like? And so, like, the act of exorcism in the game is depicted in a somewhat a morally ambiguous way, in that as much as it is overall beneficial for society, it may have certain negative effects on the particular person that was possessed. Like, it's like, I won't go too much into spoilers.
Of course.
But like, so I mean, I grew up in a Catholic family, and one of the big questions I've always had was, well, like, like, if I say the prayers, if I say exactly what's being asked of me, does that make me a good person? And to the extent that I have doubts in my mind, like, do I say that to somebody, or do I just hide it until it disappears? And so, like, the various suspects in the game struggle with that, that dichotomy. They try to, like, live up to the ideals of what's happening, like, or what's expected of them, but and you sort of saw that in the gameplay footage earlier. As you contradict them, you shatter their outer facades, and then you force them to reveal what they're truly like within, and you judge for yourself whether that means that they're the killer or not.
So I'd like to touch a little bit more about very specifically, I know we've talked a lot, like, ad nauseum, basically, regarding Christianity and the Christian church, and a lot of some of the Christian motifs that we see in here, but I want to touch a little bit more on the actual act of the exorcism inside of the game. I know we don't have that much gameplay to work on, and I know it's specifically because the game is, once again, in demo. Go over to the Steam page, wishlist it, download it. I'm not saying it again, but I would love to hear a little bit more about the antagonists of these stories that we're hearing. We know people lie, but are there demons? Are there other creatures in here? I saw a little bit of in the trailer. I'm very curious. Curious.
Right. So, to the extent that people are being possessed by these demons, the question is, why is that happening? And whether the incidents are related or not. I don't want to go too much more than that. As far as, like, in the cosmology of this in the game's universe, like, the demons are the other than people's souls, they're the only other spiritual entity. But then the question is, like, this religion is centered around like a god figure named Ein Sof, and there's a question about where does he reside? Where does he exist? Where does how come we cannot hear him, and so forth. And so, like, in that way, it also draws on, like, Christian theological questions about present, like fundamentally the problem of evil, right? Why does God allow evil to exist, and so forth?
I want to actually touch on that a little bit more if you're comfortable discussing it, because
Sure,
I know it is very personal and I understand that completely. I'd like to, a lot of what I'm seeing and a lot of what I'm hearing from you regarding the game is that a general motif, as you stated, is the question of why, which comes back to the central Christianity belief that a higher power, specifically God, gave us the ability to think of ourselves and think for ourselves, not depending upon any other creature externally, and we exclusively allow ourselves to believe our own truth internally, which is something that we don't necessarily talk about very frequently due to the separation of church and state.
sure.
What I heard previously from your experience growing up inside of a Catholic home is that you also had a very similar understanding and a similar concern about the fidelity of your beliefs and about how truthful that was, because you didn't 100% believe yourself. And so I'm seeing a lot of that inside of the game, where you question other humans and other people that are practicing members inside of both the church or inside of the state about the fidelity and the truthfulness of their own statements.
Right.
I'm curious if that was also, it sounds like it was very intentional. And my big question to answer and ask a question is, why? Why do you think that motif is such an important motif to showcase inside of a medium that multitudes of people are playing right now at a point in time? And to be very specific right now, a point in time where the truth is considered objective.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about what you asked is just the last part, the premise that truth is objective. And that's a tricky one. So, like, to some degree, just like to step back and look at the game's design for a second, there's a certain commitment to like objectivity, because otherwise, the truth is completely inscrutable, right? Like, if subjectivity is like argued to the maximum extent, if each of the suspects have just as valid, version of events, then there would be nothing to uncover. At the same time, the reason why this question about your piety, if you will, is was a central was important to me to capture in a game, is because to some degree your fundamental value, well, I said the word fundamental, but your values are at some level the bedrock, right? Measures things against your values, and maybe over time you'll change your values, but generally speaking, it's not as though you can reason your way back to your values, right? And so in that way, I have met very many people who are very good people, but I also wonder about by what basis their choices are being made, and what if have they truly asked themselves about, hey, why do I believe this? And when I reflect that question upon myself, it's hard to find an answer, right? Because it is a fundamental aspect of it. And so to bring it back to objectivity versus subjectivity.
Of course.
So I feel that the more and more we're arriving at a situation in which there is so much apparent information that one can use to justify their own worldview, that to some degree objectivity as such is eroding. And even if it weren't eroding that way, it's not going to change your inner subjective reality anyway. And so I guess from a detective fiction standpoint, how do you discover anything? How do you arrive at truth at all? Or is this just a case of power being imposed on somebody? And in a theocracy, it becomes much more sinister, because the authorities claim to have control over objective as well as moral truth. And as the arbiter of that power, are you truly doing the right thing, or are you just going along with it like everyone else is? And so those are the kind of questions that are swirling in my head these days, and that's what I wanted to explore with Lucifer Within Us.
Honestly, you put that so incredibly succinctly and beautifully. I could not have asked for a better answer to that question. I'm very happy with the way that you answered it, because you're correct. You're correct. At what point do we say, that the truth is just the truth and that's the way that it is? I completely understand wanting to get that line of questioning across, especially in today's world economy, at a point in time when a lot of people are doubting everything regarding everything. It's really refreshing to see, even at a game standpoint, which I want to just say something, and this is not necessarily out of a place of anger or misunderstanding, but very frequently people look down upon games as a medium because they consider them the subpar way of conveying a certain point. And yet this game specifically showcases that you can have very nuanced conversations exclusively. Like, I just saw a 2-minute long gameplay video and a 1-minute long trailer, and now I am literally questioning my values as a human being. You know what I mean? Like, that is magical. That is magical. That's absolutely beautiful. You did a great thing. You did a fantastic. You made an absolutely monumentally epic piece of art, and you should genuinely be proud of that.
Thank you so much.
With that, we are going to go ahead and give you a closing moment opportunity. We're just going to bring it back over to the game. I understand that the game is coming out. Specifically, we have the hard date set of October 15th, 2020. That is exactly a month from today. I believe the demo is currently available as it is right now. Is that correct as well?
It is available on Steam right now.
So why don't you go ahead and let us know where we can start following more of your publishing and developing squad's information to maybe get the very next brand new mind-melding game.
Cool. Yeah. If you want to follow what's going on in our studios, definitely follow us at Kitfox Games on Twitter. And if you want to know just the information behind Lucifer Within Us, just go to www.luciferwithinus.com. And as Sharpie mentioned, the demo is up right now. So check us out on Steam. And if you love the game, please wishlist us. Thank you.
I believe you all also stream. Is that correct? We can probably also watch you stream in live time as game developers in Montreal. Is that correct?
It depends on our situation. So I'm not in charge of the community development right now, so I can't promise what we're streaming and when.
Fair.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely check them out on Twitch if you guys love their content. They're fantastic. All right. With that, we are actually going to bring a close to all of our developer interviews today. I'd like to go ahead and thank all of the amazing, spectacular group of developers that we had on today. And I'd also like to thank you right there, gaming enthusiasts, for watching and supporting indie developers. I've always stated that indie devs are literally the grassroots, the lifeblood of gaming as it is today. And I stand by that, regardless of how I feel about grapplers. You know it. Thank you so much. And yet again, this is Sharpie signing off, maybe for the last time. Thank you so much for watching Game Devs of Color Expo 2020. Stay tuned. We have some closing statements and awards for you. Thanks for watching.